Welcome to day 27 of the 75 Hard Challenge YouTube edition. And today I'm going to talk about how to manipulate yourself into wanting to read a specific book for mood readers. I've always had TBRs. Always. I have one on Goodreads. It's insane how some books stay there for years. I found out pretty quickly on Book Talk that I'm a mood reader. What does that mean? You might ask. You cannot, for the life of you, decide which books you're going to read in which order. So, for example, let me just say, I'm going to read Throne of Glass, then I'm going to read Wild Love, and then I'm going to go back to Throne of Glass to book 2, and then I'm going to read this. I can never go through with that. I tried so hard, but then when it comes to actually reading that, I either see another book that I want to read more, or I just end up in a slump because I'm trying to force myself into reading books that I don't feel like I want to. I think that this might be like the picky eater of readers, kind of. You just don't feel the mood. You just don't want to read those books for whatever reason it is. Sometimes there's not even a reason. You're just like, kind of don't want to read that. I never really pressured myself into reading those books. Yes, I had a kind of roadmap, but I never pressured myself into reading, but I still kind of felt bad, especially if it was like a book club book of the month. And I also feel bad sometimes because someone will recommend me a book and I will take months to read that. And when I finally do, it's the best piece of literature I've ever read. And I get so mad at myself. If you feel that way, maybe you're just like me. But after all that, I learned how to manipulate myself into reading it. Manipulate. When I have a specific book that I want to kind of force myself into reading, I look up the book if I don't have the copy on my hands. I read the summary, and that already helps a little bit when you're like, And while I'm at it, I also read some reviews, but it has to be spoiler free. Don't do this on TikTok. Don't do this on Instagram. Nothing like that. Just on Goodreads. But do remember, if you're doing that on Goodreads, people are harsher over there. So maybe filter by the 4 or 5 stars. Now, I feel like this is especially for fantasy books, but you can look up any ambience video on YouTube, right? So when you want to read a book, like when I want to force myself into reading Throne of Glass, because I only read 2 books from it, I go to an ambience on YouTube, Throne of Glass, ambience with music. And then I listen to it for a bit and it keeps the mood going, I feel like, oh my gosh, this world kind of feels amazing. And then you get more excited because I feel like when you put yourself in that world, you kind of just want to keep going. Something that can help is also looking up playlists on Spotify or even YouTube. There's a bunch of playlists on YouTubers. There are bangers, okay? You can probably find any type of playlist on YouTube. I've seen Twilight playlists, Throne of Glass playlists. I've seen like miscellaneous dancing with your enemy at the ball or something like that, There are some very specific ones. You can use that even for contemporary romance, I feel like, because there are ones that are based just on romance, so that might help you along a little bit. And most books these days, they have playlists on Spotify. If not by the author, by readers that love this. And if you're still not sure on what aesthetic the book gives, you can this is dangerous, so be careful. You can look up the aesthetic. Repeat after me. The aesthetic on Pinterest. The aesthetic. Please, for the love of God, don't put book title and then fan art. That's just gonna spoil the entire book for you. So, for example, Throne of Glass. Throne of Glass is just really on my mind right now, so bear with me. You just go for assassins, fantasy, aesthetic or something like that, medieval fantasy aesthetic. And also for contemporary romance, if you look up Flawless by Elsie Silver, not the book title, again, it's a cowboy book, so you go like cowboy aesthetic, rodeo aesthetic and assistant aesthetic. Any of those keywords that you throw in there and then put aesthetic after, you get yourself more into the headspace, I guess, to read the book. This sounds so dramatic. Something more complicated though that can help is going to an actual bookstore not Amazon, and just getting the book in your hands. Read the summary if you haven't. It takes a little bit more work, but every time I'm in the bookstore, I just feel like I could read 1,000 books in like one sitting, you know? So this is a very personal thing. And if you're already there, or even on Amazon, you can do that. You can get the sample of the Kindle, but you can read the first chapter. Just actually, this is gonna sound a little much. Read the first chapter or the prologue. I did that with Onyx Storm, and that gets me going. Okay. This is kind of also a productivity advice, I guess. Do it before you feel like it. You know, you just force yourself to read the prologue or the first chapter. Our brains crave, I guess you can say, conclusion. So when you read the first chapter, the story is obviously far from ending. So you're kind of like, okay, I want to know what's next. Unless the book is bad, then that does not happen. But normally, that is a great way to manipulate yourself into reading a book. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't watched the previous days of this challenge, there's a playlist down below ready for you to binge and to get caught up. We're almost at a month. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!